So imagine being handed the keys to this massive multi-million-dollar estate. It's entirely yours.
Okay, I am definitely listening.
Right. You can, wander through the sprawling gardens, throw these lavish parties in the grand halls, drink the absolute most expensive wine in the cellar.
Sounds like an absolute dream scenario.
It really does. And the person handing you this life, they give you this heavy iron ring of keys. But then they point to one specific key.
There's always a catch, isn't there?
Always a catch. So this key, it's much smaller than the others. It's cold to the touch. And the metal is so dark it looks like it was actually dipped in shadow rather than forged in a fire.
Oh, that's a creepy detail.
Yeah. And they look you dead in the eye and tell you, enjoy absolutely everything else in this house. But if you open the door this tiny key belongs to, well, your life ends.
Wow.
So the question for you, listening right now, is do you turn the key?
I mean, most people will immediately claim they would. They'd say, oh, I would just enjoy the mansion, throw the parties, and leave that one door locked forever.
Right, the logical choice.
Exactly. But human psychology strongly suggests otherwise. Because banning something, it doesn't eliminate the desire for it. It actually acts as this massive magnifying glass on that specific object.
Which brings us to exactly what we're talking about today. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are so thrilled to have you with us because today we're taking that exact scenario.
The terrifying core of the dark fairy tale of Bluebeard.
Yes, and we're examining it through a completely different, much more psychological lens. We're working from some really fascinating source material today. It's excerpts from the essay, The Bloodied Key and the Brave Curiosity.
It's such a brilliant essay.
It really is. And our mission here is to strip away the myth of the monster. Instead, we want to focus entirely on the psychology of his unnamed wife.
Because this centuries-old story is actually, well, it's a masterclass in curiosity, power dynamics, and the incredibly high hidden costs of silence.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the author argues this story challenges everything we assume about obedience and survival.
Yeah, we have to start at the exact moment the trap is set.
Yeah.
And to be clear, the trap isn't set when she walks down that forbidden hallway.
No, not at all.
The trap is set the very moment she is handed that ring of keys. That small key, the one dipped in shadow, it isn't just a physical object. It's an immediate, heavy, psychological weight.
Right, and Bluebeard's voice is, notoriously gentle when he hands it over.
Exactly. He grants her access to his entire world, effectively handing her the keys to the kingdom. But with that one fatal caveat attached.
It's like starting a new corporate job, right? And on day one, the IT department hands you the master administrative passwords to the entire company network.
Oh, I like this analogy.
Yeah, so you can access all the servers, all the files, but they explicitly tell you whatever you do not open this one tiny folder named Project X.
Because it will ruin your career.
Exactly. You aren't going to care about the millions of other files you have access to. You are going to be completely, utterly obsessed with Project X.
What's fascinating here is how the essay zeroes in on that specific phrase, dipped in shadow instead of metal.
It's such a vivid description.
It really is. Because the author frames the forbidden thing not as a physical barrier, but as an immediate mental obsession. There's a very specific cognitive mechanism at play here called psychological reactance.
Psychological reactance. Okay.
Yeah. So when someone feels their behavioral freedom is threatened or restricted in any way, they experience this intense, often subconscious motivational state to reestablish that freedom.
So by telling her she can't go in, he's basically making sure she wants to.
Exactly. By isolating that one room and explicitly banning it, he isn't protecting a secret. He is implanting a mental obsession. The moment he says the word no, he kicks the psychological door wide open. The physical door is almost irrelevant at that point.
See, I always read that moment as a twisted test of trust. Like he's looking to see if she is worthy of his empire. If she can just obey this one simple rule, she proves she's a good, loyal partner and they live happily ever after.
Well, I'd actually push back on that interpretation.
Really? How come?
Because it's not a test of trust at all. It's a calculated guarantee of failure.
Oh, wow. A guarantee.
Yeah, because a test implies that success is a potential and desired outcome. But if you look at the design of the trap, he knows exactly what human nature dictates. We are wired to resolve information gaps. He knows she will eventually have to scratch that itch.
So the trap was always meant to snap shut.
Exactly. The key being dipped in shadow represents the darkness of the intention behind it. He is engineering her downfall from the very moment they are married, using her own perfectly natural human curiosity as the weapon against her.
But then, why doesn't she just leave? I feel like that is the immediate, almost frustrated question anyone asks when hearing the story for the first time.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone yells at the protagonist.
Right, because if the guy is that creepy and he's setting these bizarre psychological traps on day one, why stick around?
And this is where we really have to look at the power of the golden illusion, because he builds this incredibly compelling environment around that trap to keep her there.
The luxury, the wealth.
Yes. The environment is meticulously designed to blind her to her own intuition. If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to contextualize the world she's actually living in.
The 17th century origins, right?
Right. While Charles Perrault famously wrote this down in 17th century France, these fears were whispered across Europe long before that. In that historical context, women were often treated as property.
Just traded in arranged marriages.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Placed into these marriages where wealth was supposed to buy quiet obedience. Leaving wasn't just a matter of packing a bag. It often meant absolute destitution or social exile.
It's the ultimate gilded cage, really. The house is vast. It's filled with gold, with silk, with rooms that just seem to go on forever.
It looks perfect on paper.
Yeah. She's throwing parties, laughing with friends, dancing in these bright, beautiful halls, and the contrast is just jarring when you look at Bluebeard himself.
Oh, definitely.
He's described as a rich noble with a beard the color of bruised twilight. I mean, that phrase alone, there is something fundamentally wrong with him. This looming darkness right in the middle of all this shimmering wealth.
But she actively ignores it. The golden illusion is so strong that she almost forgets the uneasy feeling that had followed her since the wedding.
The author calls it trust wrapped in silence, right?
Yes. Trust wrapped in silence.
Yeah.
And that silence is bought and paid for by the luxury surrounding her. The wealth acts as an anesthetic. It numbs the survival instinct. When you are surrounded by silk and gold, well, it's much easier to convince yourself that your gut feeling is just irrational paranoia.
Which honestly translates perfectly to the modern world. Think about being in a highly toxic workplace or even a manipulative romantic relationship.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
On paper, it looks incredible. You have the ping pong tables in the office, the massive salary, the prestigious title, or the partner who buys you expensive gifts and takes you to fancy dinners.
From the outside, you are living the absolute dream.
Exactly. But in your gut, there is this undeniable, persistent feeling of unease. You know something is wrong, but the sunk cost fallacy keeps you anchored. You've invested so much in the illusion that walking away feels impossible.
And that modern unease is exactly what those historical women were experiencing in a literal survival-based way. In an environment ruled by men like Bluebeard, asking the wrong question carried a deadly cost.
You just had to play along.
Right. The illusion of safety was entirely dependent on absolute compliance. If you bring up the unease, you threaten the gold and the silk, so you stay quiet.
But that trust wrapped in silence eventually suffocates you. You can only numb the survival instinct for so long before the tension just demands a release.
Cognitive dissonance kicks in.
Yeah, you can't hold the reality of the golden palace and the shadow-dipped key in your head at the same time forever. The brain needs to resolve the conflict. So eventually the house gets quiet, the parties end, the friends go home, and you are left alone with the door.
The sensory details of that moment are incredibly chilling because they represent the stripping away of all the distractions.
The house being too quiet.
Yes. The air feels too quiet. The anesthetic of the wealth has worn off. It's just her, the silence, and the undeniable urge to resolve the dissonance you just mentioned.
So she walks up to it, the lock clicks, the door opens, and the world she knew just ends.
It's such a horrific climax.
Because inside, the truth is hanging in the air. Former wives, lifeless and pale, swaying like broken dolls. All those whispered fears, the bruised twilight of his beard, the unease in her gut, it's all validated in one horrific second. This was never a home. It was an abattoir disguised as a palace.
And here is where the story shifts from psychological tension into a profound symbolic reality.
The dropped key.
Right. In her shock, the key slips from her hand and falls onto the floor of the room. When she picks it up, it's stained with blood. And no matter how hard she scrubs, no matter what soap or sand she uses, the blood stain will not wash away.
So, what does this all mean? When Bluebeard returns, he doesn't even have to interrogate her. The key acts as a silent confession.
It told him everything.
Yeah, and I've been thinking about what this unwashable bloodstain actually represents. I don't see dropping the key as just a physical mistake born out of panic. I see the bloodstain as a metaphor for the fact that once you see a horrific, fundamental truth about someone, it permanently stains your worldview.
That's a very powerful way to look at it.
You can't unsee it. Your innocence is permanently marked by the devastating reality of what you've discovered, and you can never go back to the golden illusion.
I agree, and I'd actually argue it's less about her worldview and more about a physical, undeniable complicity.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, before the door opened, they were playing a game of plausible deniability. He pretended to be a loving husband, and she pretended to be a joyful, oblivious wife. The blood on the key shatters that deniability.
It marks her.
Exactly. It forces her out of the passive role of the naive wife and into the active role of a witness. She can no longer claim ignorance to survive. The stain is indelible because the truth is indelible. You cannot know that your husband is a serial killer and still enjoy the silk and the gold.
Wow, I love that framing. It's the end of plausible deniability. The game is over. And historically, this is the moment where the story is supposed to end for her.
She broke the rule. She got caught.
Exactly. She joins the other broken dolls in the room. But here's where it gets really interesting. This is where the victim narrative gets completely rewritten.
Because she doesn't follow the script of the doomed damsel.
No. She doesn't faint. She doesn't collapse on the floor weeping and accept her fate quietly. When Bluebeard tells her it's time to die, she immediately shifts into strategy mode.
It's honestly kind of darkly hilarious when you think about it.
It really is. She is staring down a monster who has murdered multiple women, and she has the absolute audacity, the sheer titanium willpower to look at him and say, "Hold that thought. Give me 15 minutes to say my prayers."
It is a phenomenal display of agency in a situation where she supposedly have none.
Seriously.
She identifies the only resource she has left, which is time, and she exploits his arrogance to get it. By asking for time to pray, she is leaning into the societal expectation of piety, using the very structures that oppress her as a shield to buy herself a window of opportunity.
I think of it like a hostage negotiator. Only she isn't outside safely behind a barricade with a megaphone. She's the hostage inside the building negotiating for her own life.
That is a brilliant analogy.
She grabs onto this incredibly thin thread of hope, and she uses the ultimate tactic of the powerless, which is delay. She buys her own survival with nothing but time management and grit. And yet when people talk about this story, who usually gets all the credit?
Her brothers.
Her brothers. They ride in on their horses with their swords drawn and physically defeat Bluebeard. But the glory truly belongs to her strategy.
Absolutely. Without her psychological fortitude, the brothers would have arrived to find a quiet house and another locked door. She is the true hero of the narrative because she orchestrates the conditions for her own rescue.
She bought the time they needed.
Furthermore, she completely breaks his psychological script. Serial abusers, especially in these dark narratives, rely on the terror and compliance of their victims. By asking for a specific amount of time, she forces him to pause. She disrupts his momentum.
A masterclass in survival.
It really is. She was specifically chosen to be a forgotten victim, meant to be another secret locked away in the dark. But her refusal to succumb to that deadly silence is what dismantled Bluebeard's entire legacy. She didn't just survive, she became the architect of his exposure.
That completely reframes how we should be looking at this tale. Which brings us to a fascinating crossroads. For hundreds of years, society has digested this story through two very different lenses of meaning, and it says a lot about us depending on which lens we choose.
So the traditional argument, the one most of us heard as kids, is that the story is a strict warning against curiosity.
The classic curiosity killed the cat moral.
Exactly. It tells us we have no business looking where we are told not to look, and if you snoop, you bring disaster upon yourself. It reinforces the idea that obedience is the ultimate virtue.
But then there is the darker alternative view. This view argues that the story actually reveals how power hides behind charm and how forced silence is vastly more deadly than any locked door.
The author's ultimate thesis here is incredibly gold. She was not wrong to open that door.
Yes, closing your eyes to a monster doesn't make the monster disappear, it just makes you easier prey. The truth was always there, waiting in the dark. Her opening the door didn't create the horror, it merely exposed it.
This raises an important question about how we value truth versus comfort.
Absolutely. I want to ask you, listening to this right now, which camp do you fall into? Are you in the she should have minded her own business camp or the she had to know camp? Because I strongly align with the latter. Framing this story as a warning against curiosity feels like the ultimate form of victim blaming. It's a highly convenient way for powerful people to keep their secrets hidden. If you can convince the people beneath you that asking questions is a moral failing, you never have to lock your doors. They'll just police themselves.
That is exactly how institutions avoid accountability. They stigmatize the act of looking behind the curtain. The core, challenging belief we're unpacking today is that knowledge and truth, no matter how brutal or painful, are always preferable to a life built on a foundation of illusion.
If your paradise is built on top of a graveyard, it isn't paradise.
Exactly. It's a graveyard with nice curtains.
Oh, that is such a vivid way to put it. A graveyard with nice curtains. It takes immense courage to willingly end your own world, to look at the gold and the silk and say, I'd rather have the bloody truth than a beautiful lie.
And therefore, the bravest thing a person can do is turn the key. Turning the key requires accepting that the truth might destroy the comfortable life you thought you had. It requires a willingness to face the absolute unknown, knowing that you can never go back to the way things were.
We have covered some truly incredible ground today. We started with a shadow-dipped key in a 17th century fairy tale, and we've unpacked it into a timeless, highly relevant lesson on the courage required to confront uncomfortable truths.
We really have.
We've seen how the unnamed wife evolved from an assumed victim in a gilded cage to a master survivalist who used time and nerve to defeat a monster. The ultimate takeaway from our deep dive today is that her legacy is not her victimization. Her legacy is her brave curiosity. She refused the deadly silence, and in doing so, she brought the whole house down.
It is a powerful legacy. And I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder long after you finish listening today.
Let's hear it.
We've established that turning the key is the bravest thing a person can do, because the truth is always waiting. But think about the generations of European whispers that inspired this tale. If turning the key requires immense bravery and risks absolutely everything, what does it say about the society that builds these vast houses in the first place? Are we so focused on praising the bravery of the individuals who open the forbidden doors that we forget to ask why we allowed the Bluebeards of the world to build those doors and hold those keys to begin with?
Wow, that is a heavy, necessary question. Who is handing out the keys in our own world, and what structures are we protecting by not asking what's behind the door? Thank you so much for joining us on this custom deep dive. We hope it gave you some profound new ways to look at old stories, and we'll leave you to ponder the locked doors and the keys in your own world. Catch you next time.